There's a brother by the name of Gerry Monroe. Now, he went to the Fort Bend ISD school board meeting, and we talk about being engaged and hearing what these people are talking about when you have your children in public schools, if you elect to do so. But I want you to hear this video, how this brother addressed the school board, and he really just lays out a case even more for Afrocentric schools. Let's roll the clip.
You know, I went to one of them poor high schools where you wasn't supposed to learn nothing. And let me give you a quick history lesson why things don't tend to work right for African Americans in Fort Bend ISD. One, you don't have a black agenda. You don't know what you want, you don't know how to get it. You leave that left up to people who have oppressed you for over 400 years. So here's your history lesson. Why we keep talking about Brown versus the Board of Education? What is it that those people did after Brown that you support right now? It's called school choice. You bamboozled my people with school choice and magnet programs. They sucked you in, made you think this is where your child is supposed to go. Now, when you did that, you took your child out of a high-performing African-American school. You sent him over there to the white dream. He didn't get the scholarships that they were promised. His GPA wasn't right. And now you got to figure out what to do with the black school. You can't figure that out because your intentions were never right. They were never right. As a Moroccan or a black man, yesterday was a real important day. We live in Dr. King's dream, right? We're giving kids an unequal education in 2019. We're segregating high schools in 2019. You separated your communities where it's black and it's white in 2019. But you have the audacity to speak of a man who died on a concrete slab at the Lorraine Motel. And you sit here and you play with these people. You don't want me here and I don't want to be here. But for 6 years I kept telling y'all, if you can ever prove me to be a lie, then I would leave. You can't prove me to be a lie. Let me tell you, you got to walk in quorum. The reason your schools are failing, I did an open records request. Can you tell these people why you got all these uncertified substitute teachers in all your schools? That's how a school fails. How do you close them? You flip principals every 2 or 3 years. You remove programs.
30 seconds.
You don't give them the funding that they deserve. I'm not leaving. I'm going to cause problem after problem by just telling the truth. And come Thursday, I'm going to tell the truth about that Title I that you've been getting, that you ain't gave to them schools. You are in violation of federal law, and now you own my clock.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe.
If you enjoy the engaging news and information we present on this channel, would you consider partnering with us on Patreon? Your support helps us to remain your go-to source for news and commentary for only $2 or $5 per month. That's less than a cup of coffee. During the YouTube ad crisis, we faced the horrible idea that our show would have to be shut down. But it was great people like you that made the difference and helped to save our show. We want to give a huge thank you to every difference maker that supported us on Patreon, and make sure to subscribe to our channel.
Now, nothing this brother said I can say is wrong. I mean, he laid it out. He talked about the Brown versus the Board of Education case and how our children was taken out of black schools and shipped over to the white schools. That's true. And all these schools that we had in our communities were closed down. Many black teachers lost their jobs when they did desegregation and busing children in our community into hostile territories. Now, you have to remember, one of the first students that was integrated into one of the white schools, they had to have the FBI with her. I mean, that is ridiculous that you got to walk around with a federal agent just to go to school. I mean, why would you want to subject anyone to that? I would not want my child subjected to that a federal agent has to walk around with her just so she can go to school. That's stupid. Nothing was wrong with our schools at all. Nothing. Now, in the area of education, what Dr. King was fighting about was having the proper education and the latest textbooks and the latest education, not second-rate and third-rate education. They wasn't begging to say, oh, we want to go to school with the white students. That's not what Dr. King was doing. I hate when people say that sometimes, like, oh, they just wanted to go to school with the white people and do this with the white people. No, it was about resources that the black community did not have. It wasn't about just going to school, even eating with white people, because black people had their own restaurants. So why do they need to go beg white people to eat at their restaurants? They were just saying, we paying taxes in this society. It's certain things that we deserve. We don't need to be treated like second-rate and third-rate citizens. No. And that's why they had to fight about that. I mean, brothers and sisters were getting lynched all the time. Black women was getting raped every time you looked up. A gang of white males would go and run and rape black women. This was happening all the time. And they would go into jail and nothing was happening. So yes, they had to stand up and fight against that. But when it comes to the area of this situation and what this brother is saying and how these schools are putting in people who don't have their teaching certificates, that's true. They don't care about the education of our children. And we talk about that school to prison pipeline. I mean, it's nothing good that's coming out of the majority of a lot of these schools for our children. Now, this brother talked about the funds that's being given to Fort Bend ISD from the federal government. They're not doing right with it. Probably, I don't know what they're doing with it, but they're not giving it to the schools. Then that's good. He is calling that out. But after everything this brother said, I know a lot of people going to clap what he said because he's right. I was like, man, this brother is the truth. Now, after this brother said this, we can't keep subjecting our children to a system that is not for them. I mean, how much more do we got to keep hearing that? I mean, these people are not going to change. They're not. They haven't changed in over 400 years. They haven't. I don't care what you say. It's still the status quo they established this nation upon. Sure, they may not be as brutal as they used to be at times, but it's still brutal to you, trust me. Oh, there's still some brutality. And sure, they have morphed the ways they oppress you. It's not the same as during slavery, but it's still oppression. You still are second rate and third rate. You haven't really progressed much at all. And they feel that, like Malcolm X said, if you have a knife in your back 9 inches and it comes out, I think what he said, 3 or 6 inches, they want to call that progress. No, the knife is still in your back. So no, it's not any kind of progress. You still got the pain. You still have the torment. And that's what our children deal with. Now, after everything this brother said, I would like to talk to him, if I could possibly, and say, okay, this brother has this passion. How can we get together as a community and create schools for our children? Or support schools that's already created, and let's put funds behind these schools so they can pay their teachers the right way. Because I talked to someone who runs the school, and they say that many of our teachers in the public school system want to leave, but they can't leave because they have to have a certain amount of funds to live. And I understand that. And that's where it comes in with us in the community. We can't just keep complaining about the schools all the time, complaining about racism, complaining, and not doing nothing about it. We can't keep doing that because that's old already. I'm about doing. So how are we going to fix that? How are we going to create these schools? Who are the people in the community that would like to teach in these schools? You can start off homeschool. I mean, it's something that could be done. If we know that our children is not going to do well in the majority of these schools, then what are we going to do about it? I think we have a grand opportunity to do something about it. I believe we do. I mean, we need to have a time period that we remove ourselves from the situation. It needs to be a time period where they look around and say, well, all the black people went. Well, all the black kids went. It needs to be a time for that. And children that play sports, they can do AAU or whatever. I mean, I know they have AAU basketball. I know they got track for sure. I don't know much about football if you're playing football. But usually when you're an athlete, they don't treat you a certain way. They treat you real good when you're an athlete, but you just everyday, person, well, that's a different situation. But this brother is 100% right. Now we have to take charge in our situation. Our children are dependent on us not to put them in situations where they're racially abused. I just saw another story someone sent me where you had a child that ended up killing himself because he was being racially tormented at his school. And he also had a health issue. I think he walked around with a colostomy bag, and he was bullied, he was choked, all these other things he was done by a bunch of racist kids in the school. We can't subject our children to that treatment. We can't. When is we get to ourselves as parents and say, you know what, I don't want to subject my kids to that. I have to do something, because I would not want to know that something happened to my child and I could have did something about it a long time ago. It's time for us to really get that way for real. Many of us talking about we so conscious and so-called super woke as some people are, but you're not woke enough to realize that we need to be having schools just like any other community have their schools, because rest assured, if they're not going to treat you right, they're not going to teach you right. And we see that on both ends all over the years. It's time for us to stand up and do for ourselves, especially protect our children. But leave me a comment, let me know what you think about this particular story with his brother. Shout out to him for taking a stand and calling it out. But we have to move to the next level, creating the schools so our children can thrive in a beautiful environment.